Welcome back to It's a Sin Unpacked for episode 3. If you're joining us for the live premiere, you have just seen it on Channel 4 probably, like we have. If you have joined us for the premiere, join us in chat and share your comments with us right now. If you're watching us later on though, please do comment down below. We'd love to see all your comments. My name is Phil Marriott, and let's say hello to my co-host, my brilliant co-host, Sean Vickers. Hi.
Hi everyone. Hi Phil.
Ooh.
How are you feeling after episode 3, Phil?
I feel quite numb, to be completely honest. It really did shock me. It's a shocker, this one.
It's real and it's heartbreaking, but it's important. This is, you know, it's important we talk about these kind of topics. What we should say is there will be spoilers in this episode. If you have not seen episode 3, there are spoilers. Let's do some flashy spoilers somewhere, Phil.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
It's done.
Spoilers.
That's the thing, because we were talking about this before, and it's a really difficult episode to talk about, I think, without giving spoilers, because it's a really crucial episode. It's a really strong episode, and I think it's that kind of story where you have to have the darkness. It's like, you know, we've had a lot of light. Episode 1, there was a lot of humour, there was a lot of joyful scenes, but you know, you can't tell this story without the stuff that we have seen in the episode that's just broadcast.
Very true.
Can I just talk about the logo? Because I think the logo is genius. You know, you've got the black font on the white background, reminiscent of the T-shirts, the Wham and the Frankie
Wham
T-shirts.
Yeah.
So brilliant.
Very
I mean,
it's
such a simple thing. It's such a simple idea, but it really works when you see it on the screen as part of the show. I just wanted to mention that because I think it's quite brilliant.
Well, that's a lovely dovetail, Phil, into, as we always start, with the soundtrack of episode 3.
Oh, yes. It's a good one this week, isn't it?
Real gems. Some real gems in episode 3. Oh L'Amour by Erasure was a real highlight for me. One of my faves.
It sounded like an acoustic version as well. It was a slightly different version, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. It wasn't the trad one.
No.
And then everyone's favourite SAW, Divine, with You Think You're a Man, which is one of my personal favourites.
I remember actually doing that to my parents and my family. Actually, I remember lip syncing to it at the age of 13 or 14. I should really admit to that. I did a little show, much like Richie and Jill do in the series.
Amazing. We actually, on Unflopped recently, we talked about SAW, and I have to say, we talked about favourite Stock Aitken and Waterman songs, and that Divine track is there for me.
It's
quite
amazing.
Frankly. It's so mega. Any other tracks that you picked up on, Phil?
Yeah, I definitely picked up on Wham's Freedom, being a big Wham fan.
I would usually have my ear attuned to what's playing, but the episode is quite real and harrowing. And I think there were places where I was like, oh, there's been something playing, but it's kind of just washed over me because I'm really kind of drawn into the character plotline.
Do you think it was quite authentic? Because I'm guessing a lot of people that are watching this that live through this themselves, and they know friends or family that have experienced this too. I think they will be really moved by this episode. I mean, I think they probably have been so far already, but this particular episode, I think more than the others.
Yeah. I think the way it's portrayed, and it not only the character, the kind of protagonist who is at the center of this story. I'm not going to say too much, but the people in authority around him. I think that's also is incredibly damning. The police, the hospitals. I think I said this is an important story. It needs to be told.
Yeah, and the language they use, I mean, it's really dated when you think about it, but actually it's not that long ago. It's a shocker with the words that they use, and such threatening language.
Well, I think at one point they say he has become a public menace.
Yeah.
Which is just unbelievable.
Just awful. I mean, that adds insult to injury in a way, because what these people are going through is bad enough as it is, but with the hostility that they're facing from other people, it's just awful. It's the worst.
It's a tough one. We'll come back to that, Phil. I think that's there's a lot to unpack there in this episode.
Definitely.
I'll probably dive into some of our new characters that we met today. We met Donald Bassett, played by Nathaniel Hall. Hi, Nathaniel. I know, Nathaniel, you've been chatting to us over Twitter. So if you're here today, hello.
Yeah.
Loved your Donald Bassett. We meet Stephen Fry and his character Arthur Garrison.
Rocking that tash quite nicely as well, I have to say.
Beautiful. I am a fan of a mustache, I have to say. So yeah, wonderful meeting Arthur Garrison. We got into more detail with Eileen, who is Colin's mother, who
She's
I have to
beautiful.
say I absolutely adore.
Yeah,
like,
me
on
too.
every level, adore her. And I think she it's Andrea Doherty who's been cast. She's so well cast. Absolutely brilliant piece of character acting from her.
I think it's the mother that everybody would want if they haven't got one like that already. It's the perfect mum in so many ways.
She just she makes me emotional.
Yeah.
She is everything, and I think the way that she's portrayed by Andrea is just mega.
Oh, she's an amazing actress. I've got to say, we'll move on to that afterwards, but she's one of the reasons why I did sob so much in this episode, and it is a real tearjerker.
Oh, this episode
it's a really
was
powerful
a
episode.
fest.
Yeah,
very fun. I mean, I've seen it twice. Both times completely just ruined me.
Yeah.
So yeah. Brutal. And the other character I think is interesting is a lady called Lisbeth Faruqi, who's played by Sayan Sarvan, and is a lawyer,
yes.
a human rights lawyer. And I think amazing that scene. Actually, I'll start with that scene, which is, presenting back to people in authority, talking power to authority, about really the actions they've undertaken, but rather than doubling down, saying, actually, let's work together. This is about education. And I found that whole scene really, really important and really urgent and really powerful.
And what she presents them as well, it's not a threat by any means, but it's like, you've got two options. We've got the option that you're presenting to us, which is a bad one. You can go ahead and do that if you wish, but it's going to cause you problems. It's going to cause other people problems, obviously. Or you could do it our way, which I think is the human approach. Because we're all humans at the end of the day. We've all got feelings, and people should be respected. And that's basically what she was saying. And I think it's a brilliant scene because she comes across as somebody who really knows what she's talking about. Yes, she's a lawyer, so that's obvious. But I think the actress that plays her she's great. Really, really, really well cast. And I think everybody's well cast in this series so far.
Agreed. So more broadly, the start of the episode is in March 1986. So we're 5 years on from the first episode. We are 2 years on from the second episode,
and Richie's hair is different. Thank goodness, it's not
Richie has got new hair. Applause.
It's more like Ollie's hair, isn't it?
Yeah, and you start to see their lives move on. So Richie's auditioning. That's where we see him start to meet, and there's definitely chemistry when he meets Donald. We start to see him auditioning for roles. We see, as we thought, Jill taking a much more important role in the community. She's like working on Switchboard, she's providing advice, and then she's in the chorus of Les Mis. Yeah,
I know, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I don't know if you've noticed this as well. We mentioned this briefly on the previous unpackings, but there's a real contrast to what is happening in their real lives and the acting that they're doing. And I think that's so great, the way it's put across on screen. And it's obviously that kind of overlapping thing that we mentioned on the last unpacking. It's so clever how they do it, because you see them acting on stage and the stories that they're telling are in some way a reference to what they're experiencing in real life. And sometimes it's a contrast, but sometimes there's similarities.
Well, I think there's many ways that we talked about this on episode 2 of what's been knitted into the script and knitted into the edit, which I think is very, very smart. It would be remiss of me not to talk about Roscoe living his best life in Westminster.
Absolutely. His sex life gets very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
With a scenic view.
With a cup of tea. There's definitely fun there to be had. And I'm intrigued to see how that frisson works through. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very interesting. So, there were some interesting points, actually. As we mentioned, Eileen was incredible. Loved Eileen. I think she was quite brilliant.
It's a great line that she uses. The smell of piss can linger.
Yeah, she's got some brilliant lines. She's got some really brilliant lines, both like hilarious and also some absolutely heartbreaking lines.
Yeah,
but we start to see the relationship between Richie and Donald grow, and we see a trust growing there, and it's a blind trust. Let me put it that way. There's a blind trust there, and I think in the time in the period that it's set, so you get kind of a blind trust forming between Donald and with Richie, which is we don't know what the outcomes of that could be, but in the time that it's set, it's interesting. We just kind of like things are taken at face value, and there's a sense that people are trying to do the right thing, but at times passion and lust will overtake that.
And because there's so much confusion as well, they want to enjoy themselves too, to override that, because we're only human at the end of the day, and we need those joys in life. But you're right. I mean, you're right, because there is that confusion. But there's a really good scene with Richie though, because you see him auditioning and you see him kind of, wanting his acting to really take off, and he's got all these ambitions. And there's a great line that he uses, and that's, "I want to be a Hamlet, I want to be Romeo. If I say I'm gay when I'm taking these roles, I'll be the clown," because it's proving that there are so many stereotypes. I mean, there still are now, but back in the early 80s.
That's a really good point, Phil. That's a really good point, because there's that bit where they're chatting and they're kind of saying, they start saying, "Oh, can you believe Derek Jacobi? Oh, I've heard rumours about Philip Schofield." And there's all this kind of stuff going on. And then there's just various kind of like matter of fact about, I can't come out. If I come out, therefore the roles are not available for me. So why would you do it? And it's almost a bit like they're kind of, there's a sense of saying, why have you done that? You've kind of ruined your careers. You know, if you want the roles, if you want to like do the good work, you kind of have to stay in the closet. And it's just kind of accepted, and it's presented as kind of a fait accompli, like that's the way it is.
Yeah, and I suppose that does refer to actors in the States. Even now, actors in the States have been closeted for so long. And I think it's really important. I'm so glad that was in the script. And again, really cleverly written into it as well.
We start to see some repetition, actually, in episode 3, which I want to kind of point out. So there's a lovely scene with, as Richie starts to build a relationship with his agent. But she says something, and it makes you think about what's happened so far in the show, because she starts to talk about a possible role that Richie may be up for. But one of the things she talks about is boys going home and they're never seen again. And you suddenly think back to the first episode, and you think, well, we've seen that with Juan Pablo, we've seen it with Gregory, and now we see it again twice in this episode of people just going home, never to be seen again. She's basically...
I've actually got goosebumps just thinking about
it. It's kind of an indirect piece of motherly advice in some ways, because she knows what's going on. Her eyes are wide open.
And she grabs his arm as well.
Yeah. And we've seen it, and it made me think, we've seen this. Like Russell T Davies has written this in. We're seeing it all the time, that people are just disappearing.
It's really chilling, isn't it?
Quite powerful.
Yeah, really chilling. I mean, I've got goosebumps now just thinking about that. But there are so many moments like that where the sensitivity and the way that it's put across in this, the way they created it and directed it, written it into the script, it's quite beautiful. I mean, it's a very, very tough subject, but the way they've handled it, I think, is really sensitive and really, like you say, really powerful. It really comes across like that. It makes you think. It's very thought-provoking.
Yeah, of course. And what you also see is like a time lag. The way we saw Jill, maybe in episode 2, starting to educate herself, starting to understand what's going on. You see that in episode 3, 2 years later, but you see Roscoe doing that, suddenly saying, what's going on? Where are we? And there's a difference, but you see this lag. You also see for the first time testing happening in episode 3. So we've started this conversation in 1981. It started earlier than that, but we're in 1986 in London, and we're at this point where there's like you're starting to see something work through, which I thought the way it was positioned was quite interesting. Yeah,
and you get a real sense of them being homesick as well, because obviously they're not, they're 18 when it started, wasn't it, 1981, so they're like 22, 23 now. We got to 86, maybe slightly older. But you get that sense of them wanting their home comforts. There's a brilliant scene where Richie rings home and he speaks to his mum, Keely Hawes, and she talks about, so matter of fact and so kind of homely and mumsy, "Oh, I've made a lasagna, it was really nice." And he's obviously going through troubles up in London, and you just get that sense of feeling homesick. I felt really homesick watching that, and it made me feel like I did when I was, younger age or similar age and phoning home to my parents. And you do get that sense of that anguish and wanting everything to be better.
But I agreed. I think that's an interesting scene for Richie, because what we've seen so far is that, he's headstrong, He's smart. He's a little lippy and mouthy. And
quite self-centered, yeah.
And quite self-centered. He believes he knows the world. And actually, what you get from that scene is a sense of hopelessness, which is like something may or may not be happening, or some things are happening around me that is outside of my control. And actually what he turns to is his parents. Yeah. Like he's kind of like, who are the only people that I can turn to? And he turns to his mother, which I think is really telling.
Yeah, definitely. Can we talk about the cast as well? I mean, we mentioned, you know, that it's so brilliantly cast. There are a few newcomers, I believe. There are people, I think the guy who plays Colin, because his performance in this is so genuine. I really believed in his character. And yeah, it's all to do with facial expressions and how someone comes across on screen, isn't it? Not just how they speak. It's about, you know, you see the anguish in their faces, you see the torment. And yeah, I think it's incredible. I think it's so well acted.
Colin and his mother, Eileen, the combination of the two of them is spot on. Yeah. It's a great piece of casting. Both are believable. There's something about Colin. It's like he's got this like warm naivety about life, and actually, he's quite happy with his lot. He's not like Richie, where he was like, "I want to be on the West End." He's kind of like happy with his lot. He works at, I've got it called Printer Lux or whatever it's called. Yeah. He's kind of okay. He's like, this is kind of what I want from life, you know. He's not pushing the boundaries. He just wants to be, in some ways, he wants to be really regular. And I think he plays that so well.
That was demonstrated in his previous job, wasn't it? When he was interviewed about promotion, and he said, I'll be quite happy being here in 20, 30 years time, or however long it was. And, you know, he's quite happy in his life, isn't he? With what he's got.
Yeah. And so I think when you're that kind of, this is where I think the acting is really, really quite fantastic. When you're playing that kind of character and all around you, life events are happening, big life events, that's unnerving. Because if you are that kind of like steady Eddie, regular kind of chap, that's unnerving. And so like, I just find the way Colin is played and his relationship, because his relationship with his mother is in contrast to Richie's relationship with Keeley Hawes, with Valerie. They're two, you know, it's two gay sons and two mothers, but the way that they interact and the warmth is so different.
Did you pick up on what I thought was an acceptance speech in a way is Colin's mum when he sits down and has dinner with her, and she's talking about his group of friends, and she kind of says they're a bit weird, but actually what she's saying is, if I think I'm right in guessing that I think they're a great group of friends. They're different, but they're great because they're friends of yours, and I accept that.
That scene is amazing. Because it's this kind of warm, gentle hand of acceptance, and there's no judgment. She's saying what she needs to say, and Colin is hearing what he needs to hear, and it's a great, again, it's another brilliant bit of character acting, and I think the script is perfect because she's acknowledging she's not stupid. She's acknowledging what she's seeing. She's saying it's okay.
Totally, and it's that nuance I think that really set me off, because you really feel that bond. You feel the mother and son bond, you know, even though there are secrets and that, you know, she doesn't know everything. You kind of sense that she does, because it's true, isn't it? Mothers do know. Mothers always know. It's such a well-known thing. It's such a cliche in itself.
Well, it's a great episode.
Yes, it is. Such a powerful episode. I mean, we can't talk about everything, because I think you need to see it. And obviously, if you're watching this, you have seen it more than likely. So. Yeah, grab
a box of tissues, because that's all I can say. But it's an episode, and it's a piece of TV that will stay with me for a long time, because I think it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, great stuff. And we've got 2 more episodes next week, back for a live premiere straight after the Channel 4 broadcast, Friday the 12th of Feb. So be here for that. If you're not, then you're missing out. And if you haven't seen any of the episodes so far, you really are missing out.
You're missing out. This is golden TV. This is the golden age of TV, and you're missing out. So get on it.
Thank you for watching. Good to see you, Sean. See you next week.
Thank you, Phil. Bye, everyone.